Before we begin to make any soap, I just want to go over the health and safety aspects of it. First and foremost, this is a chemical reaction between a really strong caustic, which will burn you, take the skin off you, and oils and fats. And because it's a chemical reaction, you have to follow the recipe to the letter, to the last gram. Because if you don't, you could end up with too much oil, which will spoil your soap, or you'll end up with too much free caustic soda in your soap, which will burn you. So that's the numero uno. Follow the recipe to the letter. When you're using caustic soda, and this, you have to wear gloves and safety glasses. I wear my own glasses to protect your eyes, because caustic in your eyes will cause serious damage. Should that happen for any reason, get yourself to a sink of cold water and splash a great deal of it into your eyes to rinse them out, and then get yourself to an A&E or to see a doctor. That's number 2. So always wear protective gloves and eye protection when you're working with caustic. And you're working with caustics from the moment you add the caustic to the oils. Your mixture will be highly caustic and until that soap has saponified and you end up with soap rather than a caustic soda mixed with oil. Now, this is a rather nice red wine vinegar, which I don't usually use, but I have it to hand today. Buy yourself a really cheap vinegar, because the vinegar is an acid and it will neutralize the alkali. So if you do get it on your hands, if you do get it on the work surface, flush everything off with cold water first and then apply vinegar, and that will neutralize the burn that may be happening on your skin. And so make sure you're really happy and understand the health and safety implications of working with caustic soda, and then we're ready to go. These are the materials and equipment you'll be using to create a simple bar of soap with 2 oils. I've got virgin coconut oil here, straight from the supermarket, and olive oil, not a heavy virgin olive oil, a simple light olive oil. Caustic soda from a hardware store. Make sure it is pure caustic soda and not a drain cleaner. Very often drain cleaner has other compounds in it, which is not what you need for soap. You must be really careful about that. For the caustic soda, I have a glass jar and a plastic jug with 260 ml of water in it, ready to go. Stainless steel saucepan. This is a digital scale, absolutely essential, because everything you weigh has to be absolutely precise. This is a chemical reaction that's going to happen here, and if you get your measurements wrong, then your soap will either be too fatty and fail, or it's going to be sharp, it's going to have free caustic in it, which will burn you. You need protective gloves, a stainless steel spoon, a spatula which has got a plastic head, and a blending stick over here. Now, before I started, I've prepared my pot, and as you can see, there's nothing special about this little box. I use this over and over again, and it's exactly what I like. I've lined it with a little bit of greaseproof paper, just helps get the soap out once it's been cured. I've also got a selection of essential oils. Now, obviously you can't sort of buy these off the shelf, which was the intention with this soap. So you don't need to put them in. You can have a beautiful bar of soap without any fragrance at all. But if you want to, you can buy these online, and I've put several websites at the end of this activity. To measure those out, I use just a standard glass jar. So we're ready to go now and make the soap. And the first thing to do is to weigh out all the materials before we begin. The first thing I'm going to do is centre my scales to make sure that they're on 0 and that my units are grams. So pop my pot on, that says grams. Now I need to bring it back to 0 again, and I'm on 0. I've melted the coconut oil. I'm going to tip that in. It should be 300 grams because that's what it says on the jar. Tip that in. and that's 305. So I'm just going to remove just a tiny little bit. I'm just going to use a teaspoon, and that's brought it down to 300. Perfect. So you can see how absolutely precise you must be in order to get this right. Now I'm going to centre it back to 0 again. Pick up my olive oil. Now, in the grand scheme of things, you really ought to, it's probably a better idea to pour this into a jug and then pour it into your pot. However, I like to do it this way because I'm always worried that I'm going to leave oil in whatever container it is that I've been using to measure out my olive oil. And I think, oops, get quite good at doing this. So that's 200. It's going to be half this jug, but I need to make sure 3. Come on, come on. Okay, so 4, 3, 4, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 2, 9, 8, 500. Perfect. Whoops. So those are my oils all mixed together, and they can stay right where they are. The next thing I need to measure is my caustic, and in order to do that, I'm going to pop on some gloves because this stuff burns. I've also got my glasses on. If you don't wear glasses, I would strongly recommend that you must wear some kind of safety protection for your eyes, because if this stuff flips up into your eyes, then it can blind you or cause serious problems. And if it does happen, straight to cold water and splash loads of it into your face. So I would always have vinegar on the side at this point, just in case I need it, to neutralise any caustic that gets spilt onto myself or onto the countertop. So I'll just pop that over there. Now, I'm going to measure the caustic into here. I want grams, centre it down to 0, and I need 117 grams of caustic soda. There. Right. Always, 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 always add your caustic into your water. Never, never add the water into the caustic, because what you can get is a volcano. As you add a little bit of water into a lot of caustic, it can just whoosh up. Now, just take that here. Yes. You need a spoon because you need to mix the caustic into the water as it dissolves. Otherwise you can get a sort of hard crust at the bottom of the jug. Another good idea is to pop your fan on, because what you'll get is this sort of puff of steam coming up. I don't know whether you can see that. And it is quite caustic. It can catch you in the back of the throat. Also have your windows open. Right, I think that's nicely dissolved. And I'm ready now to add the caustic into the oils. Now, this caustic is really hot, and it's going to melt those oils for me. I'm going to take my spatula, because the other thing is I want to get absolutely every scrap of lye into my pot. And then you need to keep stirring and stirring and stirring until all the oils, as you can see in there, have dissolved. Now the heat from the caustic soda will, or the lye mixture, will eventually melt all these oils. As they begin to react together, the oils and the lye, that also creates heat. So I am going to now just stir this and stir it until all these oils have melted. As you can see, the coconut oil has all but melted, and I'm still stirring. The liquid is reasonably opaque, but not completely. In the meantime, I've also measured out 30 grams of essential oils, but again, if you don't have any, you don't need it. You can still make the most beautiful soap without adding any fragrance to it. So I could stir and stir and stir probably for about 20 minutes, and this would nicely thicken up till I get to the point called trace, where you can lift your spoon and you can leave a trace, a bit like when you make a sponge cake, across the surface of the soap. But you can massively speed everything up by using a stick blender, and that's what I'm going to do now. So I'm going to take this out, just pop it over there, and put my stick blender in. Now I'm going to just blend this until my mixture starts to thicken. Make sure you keep your stick blender down. You don't want any of this soap to splash up into your face, because this is still very caustic. And as you can see, it's beginning to thicken already and to change colour. Just going to lift it up and have a look. It's almost there. If I dribble bits of the liquid on top, it's just beginning to get thick enough to trace, but I'm going to blend it for just a few more seconds. Test it again. Yes. Tempted just to maybe a few more. Be a little careful, because you don't want to get so thick that it seizes, but I don't know if you can see that. I can now see a pattern merging on top of my soap. That's a light trace. So it's the consistency, there we go. You can really see that on the surface there. And it's like a custard consistency. And so at this point, I'm going to add the essential oils. Just toss them in. And they will dilute the liquid a little bit. I'm going to mix that in really well. If you're adding any colouring, then now's the time to do that, but I am not, and I think that's absolutely ready now to go into my mould. Just bring this. So I want to make, this is still a caustic mixture, it's still going to burn, so be careful with it. Now, here we go, and I'm going to pour it straight into there. Now, it's a really good idea, I hope you can see this, to get as much of this soap out of your pan as you possibly can with a spatula. It just makes clearing up so much easier. There we go. So I'm now going to put a lid on this and then wrap it up. Oh, my little assistant, thank you. Right. So that'll go on there like that now, and then I'm going to go over to my towels and wrap it, because you want to keep all that heat that's being generated through this chemical process, you want to keep it in there. If this soap cools down, then it'll stop, the whole process will stop, and you won't end up with any soap at all. So you need to keep it really wrapped up, keep all that heat and energy in the soap for 24 hours. Now, any surface is fine for this. I just happen to be putting it on my Aga, but it's off. This is cold. You don't want to put it anywhere where it's too hot. You just need to put it in a nice warm place out of a draft. And I tend to put a towel underneath and pull the sides up like that. And then I've got another one here which I will double up and place over the other way. And then finally, sorry, it just ends up on the floor like that. But you can just as well use a nice blanket, but whatever you're using, make sure it's nice and cozy and it's wrapped round the whole thing really well. And this will stay here for at least 18 hours. I tend to leave mine for 24 hours. And then you open the box and you have soap. So when it comes to washing up after making soap, wear your gloves because everything is still caustic. This is the container that had the caustic crystals in it. And I'm just going to rinse those out, put them aside. This little glass here had the essential oils in it. And again, I'm just going to use hot water to get rid of most of it because all my utensils will go eventually into the dishwasher for a really good washing. Now the rest of it here, which has had the soap mixture in it, I would just wash off as much as you can with hot soapy water, with plenty of detergent, to cut through the oils which are still present. Like that. Then at this point, again, I would put mine into the dishwasher and let that do the final cleaning. However, if you prefer not to, or you don't have a dishwasher, then I would add a couple of tablespoons of the vinegar into some water and just rinse it out with the vinegar, because what you'll find is the soap is really quite slippy. It's the alkaline leaves a really sort of smeary, slippy feel to everything, and the vinegar will cut through all of that. So all these things will go straight into my dishwasher for a final clean, or as I said, you can add more soapy water and vinegar to clean. Soap mixture has been incubating nicely for 24 hours and it's ready to unwrap it now. So I'll take off my towels and have a look at it. There we go. So that's looking pretty good actually, and it's nice and hard even now. I mean, this has got 4 weeks to sit and cure and to harden, but as you can see from here, it's a really good hard bar, and I'm really pleased with that. So the first thing I need to do is get it out of the pan. So the best thing to do is run around the edge with a knife like that. Okay. Now very often I'll just put it onto a piece of greaseproof paper like this. Should just pop out for me. There we go. If it won't come out, well, sometimes I will forget to put this piece of paper in the bottom, and if that happens, put the whole thing into a freezer, freeze it cold, and then it'll be really hard and you can pop it out quite easily. While it's quite soft, I just run around the edges a little bit. Just smooth the edges, and I'm now going to leave this on the paper in a room where it's cool, not too hot, and there's lots of air circulating, because you want this now to just sit and cure for four weeks. The saponification process takes all that time to finally finish, and after that you can just cut it with a knife into bars however you like, and it's ready to go. The worst thing you can do is put this into a confined plastic bag or a space where there is no air, because it won't be able to breathe, it won't be able to dehydrate, which is what you want it to do. But there you go. So this is a piece of soap that I made a little while ago, and I just want to show you how I would cut it up. And sometimes you can get sort of white ash on your soap. There's a little bit on this soap, but not a lot. But don't worry about it. It happens quite often, and it certainly won't detract from the quality of your soap. And if you do sort of ruche up the surface of it, it just sort of disappears. Some people might even just scrape it off, but you know what? I just don't do that. So, having done my little bit of decorating, just take a knife and cut straight through it like that. And the bars can be whatever size you like. Some soap makers will have a special board with a sort of cheese wire, but I've never bothered to do that. And then just cut it into however big the bars you want, and that's as easy as that. If you're feeling particularly creative, you might want to sort of get rid of the sharp edges like that. And there we are. Soap done.